listening to our podcast, the Slowpoke Travel podcast. We hope you enjoy our podcast. The podcast starts right now. Slowpoke Travel podcast with Buck and Camera Girl. Ta-da! Hello and welcome to Slowpoke Travel podcast. I'm Buck.
I'm Camera Girl.
And today's episode is going to be another destination episode. The last one we did was about the Smoky Mountains, and this one is going to be about Ucluelet in British Columbia, which is Canada. A town that we stayed in for a little over 3 months a few winters ago on a house sit. We've had a variety of different podcasts already, one about house sitting, one about our travel plans, the destination one, and now this is another destination one. Mm-hmm. One that I want to do in the future is another one about house sitting once we apply for a house sit. I want to make a podcast, sort of build it around that, about the process of us getting a house sit so people can see the steps we go through to land or maybe not quite land a house sit.
And I want to have us talk about digital nomads and that mystical term, which, you know, it's not mystical anymore, but I want to talk about that because I think there's a lot of people that are interested in what else can I do with my life, and that may seem far off.
Huh? You sound like a life coach now.
No, but I think that's part of what our podcasts are going to be, is about some lifestyle issues, travel, lifestyle,
well, that's
destinations.
Because it's whatever we're doing, which is us trying to figure out stuff. But I think we're going to start off with comments again before we jump into the Ucluelet stuff. So let me get going here with a comment here. I'll do this one here from BC Truck, BC Blaze, who commented on our Smoky Mountain podcast. BC says, when I saw podcast in the title, I was pretty sure this was going to be a show about fishing.
I love it.
I liked it even though there was no fishing. I could listen in my shop without having to watch a bunch of casting. I replied, this is like Bill Dance, but a lot less action. Does that make sense to you? No?
No, but I don't know that reference.
Bill Dance, he had a fishing show.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So anyway,
okay.
I'm pretty sure BC got that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Here's a comment here from Lynn Brannon. This was on our travel planning podcast. Lynn asked, do you two fly everywhere in the States to house sit, or do you own a car and drive where you stay?
The short answer is we have a car and we drive in the U.S., but we have thought about applying for some places in urban areas where it could be either walkable, or there are times that somebody allows you to use their car.
We almost just applied for a sit. We discussed the possibility of applying for a house sit in Portland, Oregon.
That's right.
That had a car.
That's true.
And that would have made sense for us because, you know, we're on the East Coast. That's a big expense to drive across the country. It would have been a 5-month house sit, so it would have been worth it if we'd applied and gotten it. But we could have flown there for a lot less, and that would have included a car. So some of them do include cars. Most house sits, I would say, don't include a car.
That's true, but we had one in Chile and one in Mexico.
Yeah, we couldn't have applied for them if they required a car.
Oh, agreed. But she did say U.S.
Although here, there is a car.
Yeah.
At this particular house sit, a car is part of our responsibility.
So we have to run it.
Once a week we get in a car and drive it around, so we got to keep the battery up so that it'll be working when she comes back. But we have to have our own car for this house sit. Got another comment here from Lynn I want to read because this is a question we get on a lot of our Mexico videos. Lynn asks, all I hear about is the horrible crime in Mexico. What makes you feel so safe to travel there?
As a female, I will say, the more you research past the, as you say, clickbait articles that say, oh, another cartel death in Mexico, you'll realize that it's like anywhere you travel. I don't think it's any more dangerous, but I will say that when we went last, there were a couple of places that I thought, the more I did research, I mean, you can definitely look at the State Department or whatever country you're from. Generally, they have some information about a country. But I always suggest looking a little further as well. And there were a couple of places I said, let's stay away from these places because there seems to be extra excitement going on right now. But you just do your research and then you move on. It's like I'm also in the U.S., I can think of several cities where I'm not going to go at night. I'm not going to go walk around by myself. I think that there's a bit of a PR issue. And I'm not saying there aren't drug cartels, and I'm not saying there aren't issues. and sprinkling pixie dust on it. But I do think it is a little overblown. You just do your research and then you pay attention like you would anywhere you've gone. In Chile, we almost got pickpocketed.
We did have incidents where we were actively being pickpocketed on the subway in Chile. And we're kind of looking at each other like, are these guys trying to take stuff out of our pocket?
Yeah, it was interesting.
But
they knew we
never
didn't
felt
speak
threatened
English
because we're just crowded full of people. But yeah, they would have robbed us if we weren't aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, you've been robbed.
Yeah, I've been robbed 3 times. All of it in the United States, all of it in New Orleans. I love New Orleans, but I mean, crime can happen anywhere. But I felt very safe in Mexico. We were at major tourist destinations, I guess. Not really. We were in Morelia. We were in Guadalajara. I mean, we were in urban areas.
Yeah.
We were where just regular people go. Where families are living and working. It's just like the United States.
Yeah.
The people are trying to live their lives. I mean, a lot of news, just any kind of news you get nowadays, is very negative. It's very clickbaity.
It is important to do your research, and we have not been as adventurous as a lot of people where they will go any and everywhere. They do their research and then they go anywhere they want to go, speaking the language or not. And we have been more conservative than that, and that's something you can do when it keeps coming into your mind. Then just go to places where a lot of tourists, even tourists within the particular country, go.
Yeah.
And
we got a comment here. I can't say this. I don't know. It's Ubayax.
I don't know.
Uobayax. Okay, 238. It's all scrunched together. So I'm trying to say it as one word. I think it's 3 words and some numbers. But this comment is Costa Rica. All the way. Just came back from 2 weeks there. Home test to Renter US. Love that place. Many speak English there too. So this is somebody that's actively traveling to Costa Rica right now. Yep. We had another comment from somebody that had just got back from San Miguel de Allende. And we're seeing videos of people in Mexico. And a lot of times people are wearing masks in Mexico, just like you're seeing a reoccurrence here. But so I'm still waffling, day to day. I don't know, because part of me is like, why not go to Mexico if we're just going to be kind of sequestered, sort of like we're doing here, sort of a retreaty type location. We could do that in Mexico, and for a lot less. So I don't think, there's COVID here, there's COVID everywhere, so I don't know if that's, like I said in one of my answers here, my main concern about going to Mexico now, or any place where I don't speak the language, is being in a situation where COVID or some sort of travel restrictions might come into play, and because we don't have a great command of the language, we might not understand what's going on. Here's another comment here from Michael Zenker. Michael says, "Don't worry about Mexico. We have been there twice since COVID and had no issues. Went to PV and Lake Chapala." So Puerto Vallarta and Lake Chapala. So we've been there twice since COVID and had no issues. So you can go somewhere and not have issues.
Exactly.
Just like you can go here in the United States and not have issues. But you can have issues here in the United States. And you can have issues there in Mexico. So your experience is going to be what it's going to be. But it's obviously not constrained by map lines. That was my impression of an inarticulate person. Before we get going, let me insert the commercial. The commercial is for us. Camera Girl and I have a Patreon at patreon.com/buckandcameragirl. So if you want to support this podcast, we also have a link to a PayPal tip jar. So if you like our cooking videos, our traveling videos, and this podcast, and you want to support us with some funds, super duper thanks to the folks who already do. Camera Girl, when she goes to check our PayPal and whatever, if somebody has left us anything, she almost swoons with disbelief.
I appreciate people supporting us by watching and commenting.
Yes, but if somebody wants to buy us a Snickers bar, hey, Snickers bar. But let's go to the podcast. So Ucluelet is on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, and we spent about 3.5 months there.
Oh, it was wonderful.
We did a house sit in Seattle, we did a house sit in Portland, and then we were leaving Portland and we were heading south. Our plan was to drive down to Florida, and we were staying in a motel, and Camera Girl was on the Trusted House Sitter site and saw this house sit listing in Ucluelet, Canada. And I'd never heard of it. It wasn't on my radar. It was on your radar because you'd been there before. But she got very excited and says, I'm applying for this house sit.
It wasn't just that. It was a great listing.
It was a great listing.
It had a good tone.
And I was for it. But I mean, you found it and you jumped right on board, and we ended up getting the house sit.
Yeah.
And going to Ucluelet.
Oh, fantastic people, fantastic animals, great house. Buck, who is pretty, hey, practical, move along. Tell me that you were not even like a little 5-year-old when we came in, and we, of course, come in early. That's what we generally do. And I had found us a little place on a little cove that was very reasonable. And we come in, and the waves are just crashing as we come in the
Well, in the
place.
wintertime there, storm watching is a big thing.
That's why my friend and I went there. It's just breathtaking. We come in, and the waves are crashing from the Pacific Ocean, and then we're in this little cove that is just picturesque beyond comprehension.
Well, storm watching is a big tourist draw there, and the very day that we got there was one of the biggest storms of the year. So we drove up to our place right there on the ocean during one of the most massive storms that they had the entire season.
But it was 3 hours it took us to get to Ucluelet, because you have to go over these passes. We were in the middle of the storm.
Waves
Remember the
were
bald
thundering.
eagles?
On that first
right
day, I don't
there.
remember anything but those waves.
You don't remember how amazing it was?
What are you talking about? When we first got there with the storm? Eagles? I don't remember eagles. I remember the ocean.
It's breathtaking. Amazing.
Yes.
Tidal pools. I even got Buck out there
She had
stepping
primed
around.
me for storm watching. She talked about storm watching, and I'm like, okay, storm watching. But I was bowled over by how magnificent it was.
It's spectacular.
It was, yes. It was a fun thing to do.
It was amazing.
Agape at the storms.
We agree that it's a spectacular place, and
Yes,
you could
in the
walk
wintertime.
Oh, that's true, because it gets really
We
crowded.
don't know what it's like in the summertime. It seems like it gets very crowded. I don't
Yeah,
think
we were
I'd
there
want
on
to
the
be
cusp.
there in the summertime.
Yeah.
The wintertime, when we were there, thoroughly enjoyed it.
But people enjoy surfing. Oh, you're going to get into
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Okay,
I've
okay.
got some
All
different things written down. So let me go with
Okay.
this here. Ucluelet is a dinky town on the western coast of Vancouver Island in British Columbia, which is the westernmost province in Canada. So, like, if this is Canada and this is the Pacific Ocean, this is Ucluelet. Does that work as a visual?
I have no idea.
Should I be doing visuals on a podcast?
No,
I guess
and
it works
you
on
were
the
sort
YouTube
of
part.
pointing near your armpit. I don't think I'd want to call a beautiful place an armpit.
Oh, well, I have manscaped, if that helps.
Oh.
Ucluelet is referred to as Yuki by the
Yes.
locals, and it is pronounced Ucluelet, which is a local First Nations word meaning safe harbor. Ucluelet is about 180 miles from the city of Victoria, British Columbia. And we stayed in Victoria before we went up there because we like to get to a house sit early, and we had about a week from when we landed the house sit to when we had to be there. So we drove up to Port Angeles, and we took the ferry from Washington State over to Victoria in British Columbia. And we stayed there for 4 days before we drove over the passes and whatnot to Ucluelet. And that drive from Victoria to Ucluelet is 180 miles and takes about 4 hours. Took us a little bit longer because it was storming.
Oh, yeah.
When we did
that was
it.
a ride.
You can drive there, but you have to take a ferry because it is on Vancouver Island. So you can get there from Washington State, or you can fly into Vancouver, British Columbia, and then you still have to take the ferry over to from Vancouver over to Vancouver Island. And then that's going to be like a 5-hour drive if you're coming from Vancouver, but you still have like a 90 minutes of it's going to be on a ferry. So you're going to have to go across the water. And then once you go across the water, especially in the wintertime, you're probably going to find more water because it's right on the Pacific Ocean, but it's also a very wet place. It rained a lot while we were there.
Yeah.
In fact, the average rainfall is 132 inches per year.
How does that compare to, say, Tallahassee? Tallahassee, Florida, average rain, 58.7 inches of rainfall.
58.7. Southeastern U.S. has more rainfall on average than any other place in the United States.
Yes.
And you're saying that is 58 inches?
Mm-hmm.
Which is less than half of the average rainfall in Ucluelet.
So there you
Gives
go.
you some idea of how wet it is.
Oh, I had some great rain boots with skulls and... Oh, they were fantastic. I got so many compliments on those.
If you like wearing rain gear, if you like scarves, if you like hats, if you like jackets, then wintertime in Ucluelet is the place for you. Over the course of a year, you get 11 feet of rain. That's mostly in the wintertime. Canada's one-day record for rainfall was set in Ucluelet on the 6th of October, 1967. So it was a long time ago. That'll be a quiz for you. What was the record rainfall in one day?
A lot is 2 inches, right?
So you think a lot is 2 inches,
5.
so you're guessing 5.
5 inches.
So you think the record rainfall for one day was 5 inches.
Yes.
Well, the Canada's one-day record rainfall was set in Ucluelet in 1967. One day of rain, a little over 19 inches.
Good gravy.
So that's like 1.5 feet
Well,
of rain.
when we went there for storm watching, I mean, you had your galoshes, you had everything on because it was going to rain, it was going to blow, but that was just part of it. It was fun.
And we did see some snow, but it was just a smattering. So you really don't get snow there. It says over the course of winter there might be 1 foot of snow. Some winters there's no snow at all. So we had a little bit of snow, but it was fun. You know, you go out and you kick around in it and it's gone before you know it. But it is cold and wet in the wintertime.
But you don't have the crowds.
Because the population of Ucluelet is around 1,800. So not a lot of people there. Although, how many tourists visit Ucluelet? How many do you think?
A year?
Yeah.
70,000.
90,000. The Pacific Rim Visitor Center is now the second most visited tourism center after Victoria on Vancouver Island. And it receives an average of 90,000 visitors. Because, when you get to this side of the island, you can either head left or right. And if you go left, which is a little bit south, you're going to head to Ucluelet. And if you go right, you're going to hit Tofino, when they're kind of at they're at opposite ends of the little peninsula.
Yep.
Whatever it is out there. And Tofino had some nice restaurants. So we would drive there. It was probably, a 30 or 40-minute drive from Ucluelet to Tofino.
And a lot of people like to go to Tofino for the surfing.
Tourist activities include surfing, stand-up paddleboard, fishing, whale watching, bear watching, kayaking, canoeing, camping, hiking, biking, swimming, and beachcombing. Storm watching is also an activity during the November to March season. So there's a lot of outdoor activities. There's a lot of natural things to do there. It is such a beautiful natural location. If you're looking to disco, if you're looking to have an urban experience, man, you are going to be very disappointed in Ucluelet. It is especially in the wintertime, it's a very somber, gray, not a lot going on, except you might see 50 eagles one day.
I was going to say, I have never seen that many eagles, literally 50 eagles. You think it's hyperbole, but you think, no, you didn't see that. It was, I could not believe that. And so every day, of course, I try to go back at the same time.
There was a band called A Flock of Eagles, right?
No.
Oh, it's a flock of seagulls.
Seagulls?
Because nobody thinks of a flock of eagles, but we saw a flock of eagles.
It was amazing.
It was more like a gang of eagles.
And you'd see deer, and you could see the sea lions.
And you could see whales.
And whales.
Whale watching. We saw whales all the time. You could always go out.
But they were far out.
They were far out. But some of them were close up because we saw a whale breach. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
When the whale removes himself from the ocean and displays himself before returning to the ocean.
Okay, scientists wannabe.
I mean, how many times does that happen and you actually see it?
That was amazing. And we weren't on a boat tour. We were literally walking along this trail along the water.
So we were very fortunate to see it, and we probably could have seen it. There were probably lots of opportunities to see whales breaching. But I mean, it just takes a second. So you have to be looking where it's happening, when it happens. It's a blink of an eye to see something like that.
That's why we do Slowpoke Travel. That's why we were sitting on a bench.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on the water, because that's pretty much what to do in Ucluelet.
It was gorgeous.
Is to walk along the trails and spend time, looking at the marine life along the coast. I mean, it is a very outdoor activity type place.
It's pretty amazing for such a small place. I really enjoyed their aquarium. They have an aquarium that they fill up every year and then release things every year. And they have this little library section. So if you found something, hey, and people were very nice and would talk to you about things. And it's just a very marine rich environment.
In fact, the Ucluelet aquarium is truly a gem of this community. It has sea cucumbers, jellyfish, rockfish, clams, starfish, green surf anemones. The creatures are taken from local waters, kidnapped. However, they are returned back into the ocean at the end of the season. That's a fun, positive end of that story. Ucluelet Aquarium opened March to November, $16 for adults, $9 for kids. I mean, did we go in there?
I did. You did not.
What did you pay? Did you have to pay?
Yes,
That's probably why I didn't go in there. $16. And the thing is, the aquarium is right. It's right there on the whatever the heck that water is, and you can go over to the dock and you can look down and you can see seals and otters and all kinds of stuff, and it didn't cost me anything.
You know what? I did enjoy going in there, and they have all these books about the sea life, and so I was able to look things up and talk to people. With a little space, they had done a lot. They had some kids in there, and they let them touch some of the creatures, which I thought...
They allowed the children to molest the creatures?
They were watching. The hands-on, I think, can help kids that are like 8 or 9. I'm not talking about 2 and 3 that are going to squeeze them.
Sounds inappropriate. You're not supposed to feed animals, and why can you just go up and rough them up like that?
But one theory behind any kind of zoo
is
because you get people engaged in saving activities.
I guess
wildlife
so.
Saving.
But at what? At the expense of some poor starfish who's got to be manhandled by these kids?
Well, even when we would go play around in the tidal pool, I like to just look. I took more pictures. I every once in a while did.
Really?
Every once in a while.
Well, you should be banned. Anyway, the aquarium, Camera Girl loved it. It's one of the major attractions in Ucluelet. And if you go there with your partner, they can spend $16 and go in there in the aquarium, and you can just hang around the outside the building and have a great time for nothing.
Poor starfish. She's got the paparazzi all around her. She can't even have a moment's peace.
That starfish is a dude.
Uh-uh.
One of the areas we visited a lot was the Lighthouse. There's the Lighthouse at the end of the thing, and there's the Lighthouse Loop Trail, which is what we were walking when we saw the whale breach.
What?
Lighthouse Loop Trail is 1.8 miles long, and that's a very picturesque, outdoorsy place, a very well-established trail that you can just go hang out and look out at the sea and enjoy the outdoors. But the first lighthouse was built there at that point, was built at Amphitrite Point in 1906. It was made of wood, and it was destroyed by bad weather in 1914, and that's when they constructed the now concrete lighthouse there, which is an active lighthouse built in 1915. It was automated in 1988, so there's no, crusty, curmudgeon-y lighthouse keeper there.
I'm sorry for you. You would apply for that job.
I guess it's a computer doing it all now. But it makes noise, doesn't it? Or there's buoys out in the water. Don't they make noise?
Yes.
Like you would hear a clang, or you would hear kind of like alarm sounds?
Yeah, depending on...
I guess to
how
help
rough
ships, or I don't know what it is, but sometimes you can hear some of that lighthouse stuff going on, and sometimes it could be a little bit annoying.
Sound carries.
Because of the waves. Did the waves affect it?
Yes.
Well, we had a very exciting incident occur right after we had gotten there.
Rain.
Huh?
Gotta go.
Well, let me put
bigger
up,
drops.
Let me put up the umbrella. What do you think? But what was I saying? We had excitement right when we got there. I don't think we had been there a week.
No.
And I woke up in the middle of the night
and
at our house sit, and I heard this. I don't know what it was. It was a sound.
It was their emergency
in the distance, but yeah,
alarm.
It didn't sound promising. So I got on Twitter and I was like, this sort of sounds like it's an alarm. And sure enough, it was an alarm. It was a tsunami warning.
Oh my gosh.
Saying that in
surreal.
3 hours, a tsunami was going to strike Ucluelet. Because there was an earthquake off the coast of Alaska. So they figure, here's an earthquake. This is what the earthquake magnitude was. This is where it's located.
Well, and it was the type of, how they thought the tectonic plates had.
Well, yeah, they didn't know. They didn't have any specific information except for there was this magnitude of an earthquake at this location. And based on this information, you're going to have a tsunami event at this time.
And of how many feet was it? 11?
You have no idea what it's going to be. You only
Maybe
know
that was later.
that something's going to happen.
Okay.
It's dark. It's wet and stormy out. We don't know where we're at, where we would go. Plus, we can't really go anywhere. Anyway, we felt like it would be better to be where we were at than to go out
cats.
And try to get away. Because we were house sitting cats. But we were in a very stable house.
That was great.
And it had a second floor. And then there was a roof. So I figured we'll just go up to the second floor. And we'll just wait for this tsunami. So we filled up the bathtub with water, so we'd have drinkable water.
We got people and cat food, and but it was surreal because Buck woke me up, and I was like, "What?" And then it was like, "Okay," and we're getting the laundry basket, and where are the cats? Well, they'll come soon enough. Let's just get their stuff. And
we were new to the island. We didn't know exactly what to do.
Oh my Lord!
And I didn't want to get out and get caught in traffic or get stuck somewhere.
And then the water starts going gloop,
when a
gloop,
tsunami
gloop, gloop, gloop.
came in. So we stayed at the house up on the second floor. And we waited. And no tsunami appeared.
Yes.
They had a thing saying because of the earthquake, the plates went this way instead of this way, that it didn't trigger a tsunami. So we did not have that. Although you do see signs all along the coast there warning of rogue waves and potential tsunami. So it can happen because you're right there on the Pacific Ocean. And in fact, our the house that we were at, if we left that house, it would take us 5 minutes to walk to the Pacific Ocean. 200 yards, maybe not even that far. I say 5 minutes. I bet we could have been there in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It was very close. So we were right there on the ocean.
But the other thing that was great is I think the animals would have gotten a little more if the tsunami was coming. That was the other reason why I wasn't as concerned. No, I think animals sense that stuff.
Yeah, animals sense stuff. But I mean, these are just 3 cats that have never been out of the house. They had no idea that the Pacific Ocean was over there.
They didn't have to know that.
They don't know the word tsunami. Sense. They know when their cat food's out, but they wouldn't suddenly perk up and go, you know what? I have a feeling that there's a large rogue wave heading our way. They had no idea.
I think they do sense that kind of stuff. Anyway.
There was no tsunami. We do have a tsunami story, though. This was on March 27th, 1964. A 9.2 magnitude earthquake occurred more than 20 kilometers below Alaska's Prince William Sound. So way up in Alaska, they had an earthquake. And while Alaska was hit very hard, and quite a few people died, and quite a few towns and cities and whatnot suffered a lot of damage because of that earthquake. The first wave struck the largely unsuspecting city of Port Alberni, British Columbia, around midnight. A 2.5 meter wave followed 90 minutes later by a 14-foot wall of water, which picked up cars, uprooted trees, and washed away entire homes. And that was in Port Alberni, which isn't very far from Ucluelet. But it's on the inside. It's not on the coast.
Right.
But anyway, that town suffered a lot from a tsunami at that time, although Ucluelet really didn't. And what is special about this particular tsunami and earthquake was that I was there.
That's when your mother had to go back, had to leave Alaska?
Yeah.
Because she was pregnant with you?
I was in my mother's womb during this earthquake in Alaska.
I didn't know that.
So that's why I wasn't born in Alaska, because of this earthquake. Because my mom and dad were up there and my mom was carrying me. And because of this 9.2 magnitude earthquake, my dad put my mom on a plane and shipped her back to the United States to have me. Because I was too precious to risk Because, everything was really messed up there for a long time after that earthquake. That was quite a devastating earthquake up in Alaska. But that caused a tsunami along the coast of British Columbia way back in 1964. And I think there was another tsunami event in that area in 2012. But there hasn't been a tsunami in quite a while that's caused any damage. But you're right there on the coast, so that is a potential happenstance. I was always worried about rogue waves one way there. Because she would go beach combing, and I would always be like, you got to look out for rogue waves. I've been knocked over by a rogue wave.
Were you damaged? Well,
I wasn't damaged, but I could have been damaged. The rogue waves, they come and get you, and they pull you out to sea.
They don't pull you to sea unless the undertow is really crazy, and then they do tell you. They do put a
Anyway,
alerts.
you have to take them seriously, because me and this girl, former girlfriend of mine, we were walking. This was, where were we at?
I don't remember where you said you were.
I think it must have been.
She said Alabama, I thought.
No. This had to be in. I have no idea where this was. Anyway, it was somewhere where you can have rogue waves, because we were walking along the beach, and the waves are just coming, and it's just nice. You got waves. They come in, they go out, but. They're just waves behaving themselves. But
good
every
waves.
now and then you might have a rogue wave. Because we didn't sense anything, and all of a sudden, bam, we get knocked on our ass by this giant wall of water. And then you were not expecting that. It sort of shakes you up. And then for the rest of your life, you're very aware of rogue waves. So
thanks
now
for being on lookout for us, buddy.
Right. I don't walk along the beach now unless I'm wearing a life preserver. So I'm always the dorkiest looking guy on the beach. Okay. And I got on Camera Girl about our podcast about the Smoky Mountains because she didn't have any murder information. And I tried to look up some good crime stuff about Ucluelet. But it's just a sleepy little town, and they didn't have any good murders.
You haven't even told the good part. What about the 2 places we like to eat?
Now, there were a couple of good places to eat in Ucluelet, and we were there over the winter, and we did enjoy it. But overall, food in Canada is not something to brag about.
No, you just have to dig for it. It's like a little more than some places. And Tofino, Sobo, and the shelter.
Yes. We did find some good food in Tofino. We did find some good food in Ucluelet. But you have to find it. It's not going to find you. You're going to find some bad food. You're going to find some uninspiring, lackluster food before you stumble upon some good food.
It depends on what you're looking for. Some people, they want mild. They don't want a lot of flavor.
It's all gravy and potatoes and fries. I mean, Canada, it gets cold in Canada. I understand. You got to hunker down for the winter. You got to have carbs.
What? You can't whitewash the whole country because of the little bit we looked at Victoria and the little bit in Ucluelet and Tofino.
Well, you can say a little bit. I'm saying that we were in Canada for almost 4 months, and we're not going to brag about the food, Canadian food. What were the places that we liked in Ucluelet? Wasn't there Barkley's?
So there's the Barkley Cafe.
The Barkley Cafe. Mm-hmm. They had a really great breakfast sandwich, really great coffee, fantastic place to go in the wintertime. I think it's probably awful crowded there in the summertime. Zoe's Bakery and Cafe. And the Barkley Cafe.
And again, there were some places that were not open because it was off season.
During the winter, those are the 2 places we went the most. We talked about the rainfall, so let's do some more weather stuff if people want to go. And we were there during the winter, and it was a great place to be. The coldest months are December to February, temperatures ranging from 36 to 48 degrees. So it got almost to 50, during that time, but it very rarely got freezing. So we didn't have a lot of snow. It was definitely jacket and hat weather. It was great weather to be along the coast.
Did we have snow twice? And there was deer out in the yard one time when it got just enough snow to cover the ground.
It was just enough snow to be nice and picturesque. It wasn't annoying snow.
Annoying snow.
The warmest months are July and August, with temperatures ranging from the mid-50s to the upper 60s. I mean, you're hardly getting into the 70s there. In the hottest months. That's perfect. I mean, if you're looking for something tropical, definitely not a place to go. If you're looking for something urban, definitely not a place to go.
Like a lot of places you travel, the people. We met some great people.
You're always going on about the people. Tell me the people that you met that you didn't like.
What? What?
Everywhere we go and everything we do, the people are great. Tell me, where aren't the people great? Because it'll lend some validity to your, the people are great if you can.
Well, okay,
they can't all be great everywhere.
It's not a matter of great, but okay, Seattle, I met great people, but there is a Seattle freeze that while we were there, I did understand.
That's a city freeze. That's an urban freeze.
I don't think so. But I do think, though, people were trying to be respectful by giving you your space. But remember our friend that came to stay with us in our little hovel in Seattle, and he was like, hello, hello, as we went by to, go get groceries or do something, and everybody just looked away. They're not used to that kind of thing. But that vibe is not the same of even being in Georgia or Florida where people are, hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And in Ucluelet, there were quirky, fun people.
But we give Ucluelet a big thumbs up.
Big thumbs up.
It was a great place to spend the winter. If you are into storm watching, if you're into whale watching, if you're into that sort of cold, northern, coastal, marine sort of environment, Ucluelet is a fantastic place to be if you have the opportunity. And you have to create the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit out of the way. But it's probably one of the best memories that we have for travel. If that house sit that we had became available, we would build our plans around that, especially in the wintertime. I don't think I would enjoy it in the summertime because you got one main road. You don't have a lot of services and restaurants and stuff there. I mean, in the wintertime you did, even though they had reduced hours and some of them were closed.
Right.
There was plenty to do and plenty of accessibility for services and stuff for the amount of people looking for them. I think in the summertime, you'd have lines, you'd have crowds, you'd have people. It would be more summery if you're a summer fun type person. You don't like drab gray and not a lot to do as far as dancing in the disco, then you're not going to like Ucluelet. But for middle-aged people who don't want to spend a winter in the snow, but don't want to go to Florida, then Ucluelet was perfecto. But that's it. This was all about Ucluelet. The sea. The fucking sea. Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you're listening on a podcast player, if you're listening on anything like that, write us a review and share it. Do the same for the YouTube thing if you like. Got this far? You might have liked it. So give it a thumbs up and blah, blah, blah. We really appreciate you listening and supporting us that way. If you want to support us another way, we'll have different links to patreon.com/buckandcameragirl and all that jazz. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Slowpoke Travel Podcast. Come on, same time as me. We'll see you next time on the Slowpoke Travel Podcast. Yeah, I don't know. That seemed kind of loud.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that is it. If you enjoyed it, click, subscribe, review, share all over the global internet sphere. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time on the Slowpoke Travel Podcast.